In this video, we'll be finishing up Chapter 6, Section 3, the role of prices. What roles do prices play in a free market economy? A couple questions that I want you to answer in the Nearpod as you do the student-paced option for Nearpod is to answer these three questions because they relate to what we're talking about today, and I will come back later and see your responses. The first question is a poll question. Should stores be allowed to price gouge after a natural disaster? What that means is that, let's say a price of paper towel is $5, and then during a disaster, it increases to $20. Should stores be allowed to price gouge after a natural disaster? The next question I'd like you to answer is, besides for profit, why else would stores price gouge people in need of necessities? Like, besides the profit, what is the reasoning behind that? Now, think of what we learned so far in this chapter when it came to surplus and shortage and disequilibrium and equilibrium. So your response, I expect to see some of those terms in your response to this question. In addition to that, another poll: should a government ever intervene by implementing rationing on its citizens? Rationing simply means that limiting on how much of an item can be purchased. And then the last question: why does the older generation not throw away leftovers? So when you go to grandma and grandpa's house, and maybe it may not be your grandma and grandpa, but maybe it was your parents' grandma and grandpa, or whatever it might be, why don't they tend to throw away any leftovers? What is the reasoning behind that? What happened in history that you think that would have had an influence on them? Now, in this section, we introduce and talk about rationing. Here's a few clips, paper clips, or newspaper clips from that era of what was taking place during rationing. You could take the time here to pause this video, and then you would be able to read through these articles. One was talking about nylons. The other one was talking about the cooking fats and oils and how it was reused over and over again. So take a minute to read through these articles so you can understand a little more what was happening during rationing. Now, let's talk about the advantages of prices. As our title was talking about, what is the role that prices play? Well, it is a common language. If you've ever had the opportunity to travel to a different language or interact with someone who does not speak the same language as you do, you can still communicate by prices. In my food truck business, we have had on multiple occasions where we've had customers that were deaf. We've had customers who did not speak English, but we were able to communicate just by prices alone. Prices are also an incentive because they result in action if a large demand. If we know if there's a shortage, that we know that the fix to equilibrium would be to raise the price. We also know that produce more product would be the result of a shortage. We also know if it's a surplus, we'd have to lower the price. So the short-term fix for disequilibrium, as we looked at multiple times, is to raise the prices. And also tell whether a product is in short supply or readily available. So if we find a product that's in short supply, the price can be increased to still have it in equilibrium until that supply is able to be increased. Prices are also signals for businesses and consumers or a customer. So for a business, if price keeps dropping on a product because they have a surplus of it, that's an indication that that product should be discontinued or not ordered again. For the consumer, when the price is higher, that means that we really have to look at opportunity costs to decide, is it worth putting this into our budget in order to buy the item? And as the price drops to lower prices, that's a green light for the consumer to start buying more of that product. So again, lower price, suppliers need to stop and supply something else. Higher the price is an indication that they need to produce more. On the other side of this, higher prices, buyers will think before buying if the price is so high, And if the price is lower, they will continue to buy more of it. Here is what happens though when there is a external shock, meaning that something that was not anticipated or was not planned. So we briefly talked the other day about the amount of rubber that was taken away during World War II and how now the US had to operate on 20% versus the 100% it had before. This is known as a supply shock. So a sudden shortage of a good. This is known when just a product goes obsolete quickly. We've experienced this with COVID-19 since the spring, how certain products are unable to be found. For instance, toilet paper was the big one that was very difficult to be found in the early spring. So what the government can do is known as rationing. This is an ideology that comes from central planners, which we looked at before, which was dealing with socialism, communism. But rationing is a tool that is used for that type of central planned economy, and it is designed to make sure that scarce goods and products are available to all and not allowing the price to dictate how much that item should be sold. What I want you to do in your collaboration board is take a guess of what do you think of two famous foods became famous during rationing. So think about, okay, if they have a limited supply on certain products, what are two food products that have a long shelf life that you might have at your house right now? So go ahead and share that once you get to this slide. Now, if we're doing a comparison of the cost of prices versus having someone regulate prices, the price system is free, meaning that you don't need any regulators, central planners to be able to regulate how much things should be sold. But in a central planned economy, you actually need a whole division. In the Soviet Union, they had the GOST plan. In the US, Office of Price Administration during World War II was responsible for setting the prices and also rationing on how much items can be sold. This image that you see here is actually rationing coins. It's actually paper coins that were used to be able to buy items. I want you to find and paste an image of a rationing poster during World War II. And by doing that, you'll be able to see how people were considered patriotic. I remember seeing images of this where if you were driving by yourself during this time, you were basically an ally to Hitler. And that's how extreme some of these posters were to demonstrate that everybody needs to do their part. So go ahead and find an image and post it into here. Now, rationing and shortages. As a result of implementing a rationing program, you're typically going to have longer lines, unhappy customers, and minimal conveniences, meaning you will not have very many options. So for instance, stores had to start rationing toilet paper, limiting on how many you can buy. The Lysol wipes, the Lysol spray, all that is still being rationed today. The government just hasn't come out and said to ration it, but stores have made this decision on their own. But imagine that every food product, every product that you buy was rationed. Now, the benefit is that everyone gets to have some sort of food and shelter. But at the same time, you don't get to determine how much. Even if you're wealthy, you still don't get to determine that. So rationing and shortages. So all you have to do once you get to the slide is just to watch the first 4 minutes and 45 seconds. You don't have to watch the entire thing. And you can forward a little bit from the beginning because it just has all the credits of who made it. And this video was designed during World War II to be able to demonstrate to people, it was an infomercial, how to use your ration coupons. And so it's just an interesting ideology of what happened during World War II and how things were rationed and what rationing looked like and how frustrating it was. So go ahead and watch all the way up to about 4 minutes and 45 seconds of this to be able to see what people had to live through during that time. During rationing, you oftentimes have a black market that is created. And this is typically sold illegally, goods that are sold illegally. So maybe the butcher would hold some meat on the side and he would sell it for triple the price. Or maybe the shoe cobbler or the shoe shop or a restaurant or whatever it might be holds something that they're supposed to ration and they sell it at an increased price. Now, when we think of black market, we usually go pretty dark in our thinking and we think of drugs and things like that, illegal substances. But it could be anything that was considered illegal. And during a rationing time, that would be the amount of food that they were giving out. But it still happens whenever this is taking place. When there is rules put on top of it, it is known as a black market. All right. So the efficiency of having price as a role. Land, labor, capital will be used for their most valuable purpose. Resource owners get the highest bid. And we refer back to chapter 1, where we looked at the book of Wealth and Nations by Adam Smith, who basically said business prosper profit by finding what people want and then providing it. When a free market has the access to prices and it does not have to rely on a rationing program, you're going to have better utilization. We've talked about underutilization, where not all factors of production are being used as efficiently as possible. So prices allow us to have a lot more efficiency when it comes to this, and owners of these factors of production rely on price to give it to the highest bidder. So prices have a huge impact on there. And the last slide, market problems that we find when you have prices and the profit incentive. Sometimes there's a lack of competition. Right now, more and more motor vehicle companies are coming out with electric vehicles. But the first one who had it successfully was Tesla. And owning a Tesla was a six-figure car. Now, today, when this video is being created, you can get one, or within the year, would be in the $25,000, $28,000 range. Because why? There's more competition, which drives down that price. There could be negative externalities of it, meaning that only the rich are able to afford maybe this product, or maybe there's additional pollution that is happening because creating this price. And then there's imperfect information as well. Throughout your life, you'll buy a product and it'll have all this amazing reviews, things like that. But when you get it, it's not what you thought it was. So yes, is there a problem with the price and profit incentive? Absolutely. But it is still the best, most efficient system that we have available out there. This is the end of Chapter 6, Section 3 notes.